Not gonna lie, in previous relationships, I was the crazy bitch. And the reason that I can admit that to you with a little bit of shame and some amount of pride is because I stopped being that. I stopped picking fights, staying in fights, and wanting to cycle in drama. Now, I wasn't doing that because I was a bad person. I was doing that because I had a very traumatic childhood, had a lot of daddy issues, and it was normal to my nervous system to be in chaos. One of the reasons that I would stay in fights is because I wanted to be seen as right and valid for my perspective. And I often felt terrified of being wrong because one of my deepest wounds was that there was something wrong with me. So when I got into a disagreement with my partner, which is absolutely inevitable, I would fight to be right and right and right. Now, if I need to be right, someone else needs to be wrong. Usually if you're fighting to be right, it's because you have an unhealed wound telling you that if you are not right, something bad will happen. So what I did is I started to heal that wound because I was so terrified of being seen as wrong, that there was something wrong with me. I actually reached down inside of myself, found that inner little girl who was so terrified of being wrong, and I started to love her over and over again. In the beginning, when I'd want to start a fight, I would actually pause, take a deep breath. I'd ask my partner to pause with me, and I would spend time actually finding the part of me that was terrified of being wrong and loving her. Over time, that integrated this deep fear, this deep wound. And what happened was then I could actually see my partner. And I was no longer so invested in being right. I wanted us to get to resolution. And what would happen was I would be able to map my own story, my own experience, and validate myself. I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this way because I had this experience and I'm holding this story and I had this childhood and it makes sense. Now, the biggest key was to then put myself into my partner. Now, I literally do this. I put myself as though I was in my partner's body and I hear their story. I listen to their experience. I map their childhood and I think, does their experience make sense to me? Always, so far, I've been able to validate, understand, and have compassion for my experience and my partner's experience. This changes the nature of our interaction so that we're no longer battling to see who is more right, but we have shifted to see, can we understand each other's perspective? From there, we can almost always find a compromise where one of us gets what we want and the other one is like, hey babe, I want you to have what you want and it doesn't mean that much to me. Or we find a way through where our hearts can meet and we're both getting what we want. Occasionally, if we're at a deep impasse, that's where we seek further counsel from experts to be able to find the kind of resolution that we're looking for. But instead of fighting, we're now looking to join forces and find out how we can come up with the best solution through understanding and compassion.